We've now waited 5 minutes, so we thought we could start. I'm Sue. You know that. I wanted to welcome everyone for John Featherstone's Stewardship Review. I will tell you that in the spirit of see one, do one, teach one, this is the first of these I've ever done, and the last of these I'll ever do. So forgive me if I don't know the process, but what I'm told is that the process here is that I will read the conclusions and recommendations for the Stewardship Review for John Featherstone as Dean of the School of Dentistry, and then we'll open it up for question and answer for all of you. And John is here to also answer questions and comments and everything. Doesn't just have to sit there silently and listen to me read. Okay, so that's how this goes, and anyone who's been part of this before can correct me if I have that wrong. So I'll just get right into it. So I'm going to read verbatim, just read right off the page, the conclusions and recommendations of the Stewardship Review Group. Overall, the overarching message received by the committee was that Dean Featherstone has been an effective, fair, transparent, and responsible steward of the school during a period of severe stress. He has done an admirable job of balancing the needs of a very diverse school, which includes clinical as well as basic science departments, thriving educational and research programs, and the operational logistics of dental clinics. During his tenure, there have been a number of major accomplishments. The school's finances are improving and have been stabilized. Diversity of the student body has been increased. Successful fundraising has been used to renovate clinics and faculty space. A number of promising young faculty have been recruited, and the school has remained first in research funding among schools of dentistry. The majority of those we interviewed lauded the dean on his consensus-building approach to decision-making. Some commented that this approach sometimes took longer than it should and caused suboptimal results. Also, there were a few incidents in which the dean was perceived to have bypassed the established chain of command and made decisions without input from faculty who had responsibility for those areas. So now I'll turn to the section, Recommendations for Improvement. While many of those interviewed appreciated the dean's responsible stewardship during difficult times, a number mentioned his role over the last 5 years resembled more of a caretaker than a visionary. A priority moving forward should be to create and clearly articulate a vision and direction for the school now that the climate for growth is improving. Increased involvement of clinical leadership in the dean's stewardship efforts may assist in this process. As might be expected during tight fiscal times, and despite earnest retention efforts, a number of promising faculty have been recruited elsewhere. Correcting this trend needs prioritization, and it might be wise to consider fundraising devoted to faculty support, for example, endowed chairs. Continued streamlining of the school's business aspects will also be important to realizing the full potential of the educational, investigational, and service missions of the School of Dentistry at UCSF. And now the summary. The Stewardship Committee unanimously recommends that the dean be reappointed for another 5-year term without the requirement of interim review. So that is the summary of the Stewardship Review. So I've reviewed this together with Jeff Bluestone and Dean Featherstone, and based on this document and my own perceptions, invited Dean Featherstone to talk about remaining as dean and re-upping for another term as dean. And he can speak for himself, but I am delighted to tell you that he did have some requests. He's smart enough to know that when someone asks you to re-up, you ask them for some things. He did have some requests that I will tell you are very positive in terms of Dean Featherstone's commitment to the School of Dentistry and wanting to make sure that the School of Dentistry is positioned to stay strong over the next period of time as it's been going backwards. So he and I discussed him continuing as dean, the support he needs as dean, and specifically, and I think to the conclusions in the report, both my enthusiasm and Dean Featherstone's enthusiasm for the future of the School of Dentistry and the need for the strategic plan update, which I know you have planned. So that's all I thought I would say. Do you want to say anything?
Thank you. I have a 10-hour speech here. No, not quite. So, firstly, I'd like to thank the Stewardship Review Committee for a very thorough task. I've read the report in detail, and it's, in general, very positive, and it reflects the support that I've had from all of the faculty, staff, and students over the years. So it was with some considerable thought that I responded to Sue's suggestion that I renew. And as Sue said, we have come to an agreement. We haven't got it quite in writing yet, but we're very close to that. So we shook hands on this on Tuesday, and we'll move ahead. So that's the current plan, and I hope people are satisfied with that decision. So I'd like to thank Sue for her leadership in the time that she's been the Chancellor, and I must say I was both disappointed and very pleased when Sue called me just before Christmas to say that she was moving on to different pastures. And I must say we've had, at least I think so, a very good relationship, and Sue has been extremely supportive of the School of Dentistry, and as a Chancellor was very, very quick to learn about our aspirations, our quality, and all that we did. And Sue, you learned very, very quickly, and thank you for that, and thank you for your help and assistance. It's impossible for a dean to do his or her job without the support, the true support of the Chancellor, and I certainly have had that. Also had the support prior to that from Mike Bishop, and Mike called me one Saturday morning and said he would like to, this is when I was interim dean, he would like to have lunch with me. Could I come over to his house? And that was the first and last time that Mike had invited me over to have lunch at his house, and I knew something was up. I thought, oh my God, what have I done now? And at that point, he said he wanted me to be the dean. And I thought long and hard about that, and I said, well, I have to make a call. I have to make a call to my other half, Yasmi Crystal. And we had a long discussion that evening, and I decided to say yes. And we went through it, and I did exactly the same thing when Sue made the offer to me to continue. So I would like to thank Yasmi in her absence, and she will see this video when it's done, for her support over the years that I've been the dean in many ways. I'd like to thank my leadership team, my department chairs, my associate deans, and directors of the various centres. You've been fantastic, and hopefully will continue to be fantastic. I'd like to thank also the department managers. We have a wonderful team of department managers now, and they are pivotal. I'd like to thank the staff, the function of the staff. We couldn't do what we do without them. And I'd like to thank the faculty. And in terms of staff, I don't really want to single one out, but I'm going to single one person out, and that's Jennifer Williams, my wonderful assistant who just keeps on doing things and making things happen. And of course, all the other staff as well. I'd like to thank the student leaders, and they're not here, but they'll be able to see this video when it's up, because they are fantastic people and are really a big part of what we've done. I'd like also to thank the senior administration of the campus, the executive council, and people like Jeff Bluestone, and specifically the deans of the other schools and the graduate dean. We've formed a close friendship amongst us, and I think that's made for a very strong campus. And I look forward to working with Interim Chancellor Sam Horgood, and Sue, I think that was an excellent appointment, very, very good appointment. And I look forward to educating our new Chancellor whenever he or she comes on board, and to working with him or her for the betterment of the campus and for the school. And I'd also like to comment that President Napolitano, in my opinion, is an amazing addition to the UC system, and I think we'll have a wonderful relationship with her. I'd like to thank all the working groups who are working on our business propositions right now, 8 working groups, and we'll be having a leadership retreat in a couple of weeks where the reports from those interim reports will come forward, and that'll be the second step in our strategic planning. And we're planning on the new revised strategic plan by the end of this calendar year. So that's already been in the works and on the plan for some time. So things are moving ahead, and I'd like to finish up by just saying thank you to everybody. It's been a wonderful ride. I won't say it's been a smooth ride. It's been a pretty rough ride at times, and we've come through very troubled waters, and we're in really great shape. Nothing is ever easy, and there'll always be problems. That's what we're here for, to solve those problems. And if I've omitted to thank anybody, then my apologies. Thank you to whomever I've omitted. And we'll now open the floor for comments or questions either to me or to Sue. Do we have any questions or comments? Peter?
Have you had just a few minutes or a few weeks to consider the recommendations? I don't know whether you've hearing this for the first time or whether you've actually known about the recommendations.
Of the stewardship review?
Yes.
I've actually had about 3 months.
Okay.
Yes.
Would you comment on the issue of caretaker versus visionary? Do you have some suggestions for how you might proceed with the next 5 years? Given
Well, that was an interesting comment because in my opinion, sure, I've been a caretaker, but much more than being a caretaker, and I'd be interested in people's opinions on that. That was, as I said, an interesting comment that came through, and that's a reflection of somebody's perception. So whatever that perception is, for that person, it's a reality. I think we've done way more than be caretaker when you look at where we've come from, how we've upgraded our clinical facilities, upgraded our research facilities, brought on new faculty, changed the way we do things, looked at our business plan. It's way more than being a caretaker. I'd be interested in people's comments on that.
I can comment on that too. I think I would agree with what Dean Featherstone just said in terms of his ambitions for the school. One of the great parts of working with Dean Featherstone is it's always hard, and I reflecting on becoming chancellor and dean during a deep recession. Our timing is really good, John. What I think one can do if you're not careful is lower your ambitions. And one of the things that I think has been great about working with John is his ambitions for the School of Dentistry have never lowered. And so I would just reinforce what he said, that any challenge, any headache that came his way, he's upbeat, problem solving, feels really good about this community and the School of Dentistry people, faculty, staff, and trainees, and engages them in how do we overcome this obstacle. So I think he's been a problem solver, a doer, a visionary, a relentless, positive, focusing on excellence, exactly what the kind of leader I think the School of Dentistry has been lucky to have. I'm giving you my opinion. I wasn't part of the committee. On the other hand, I think all of us were very limited on hopes and dreams in the last 5 years. And so I took the comment as reflective of both, there has been parts that have been like trying to tread water appropriately given the financial situation. And I saw them as more hopeful and input if Dean Featherstone does continue, as I'm positive about him doing. Now can we turn to, are there new programmatic areas? Are there ambitions that the school is capable of? Because I think we all believe the school is capable of doing even more and being even more exciting. And now that's possible. So I sort of took the comments on that in that vein.
If I can add one thing to that, people's perceptions are based upon whatever their reality is. And whomever, and maybe more than one person made that particular comment, their observation was that this was what was happening, and sure it was happening to them. And one of the things that came through to me in reading the report several times over was that although we're spending a great deal of time and effort on communication, we're still not getting through the full picture to some people. And some of our faculty and staff just haven't got the picture. I don't know how we can do that better, but my goodness, we have to plan to do that better, and that's one of the reasons why we have now an interim Director of Marketing and Communications who's sitting right in this room right now, and we'll be moving ahead with making a permanent appointment on that. And that comes up too in terms of some of the comments about interactions with various parts of the faculty. We can certainly do better. I personally, I think, bend over backwards to interact and make sure that we communicate with faculty, different groups of faculty and whatever. And I wouldn't be standing here if a whole stream of clinical faculty hadn't come into my office one after the other and said, we want you to continue. So I think that adds to it. Thank you. Any others? Susan.
So John, I heard in the report a bit of a tension between your leadership by consensus style, which is very transparent, but time-consuming, versus when you don't use that leadership style and are then perceived as making somewhat rushed, arbitrary decision without consulting the people that you should have. So where do you see balancing that tension moving forward?
It's always a fine line, and nobody's perfect. And I think it's something actually that we've discussed at the executive level on more times than one. And as you know, I'm a consensus builder. That's the way I work. Sometimes you have to make a decision to do something and move forward, and I won't say short circuit, but truncate somewhat the interaction. And I can think of one particular example where I went to my leadership team, the Deans and Chairs group, we went to Faculty Council, we went to the student leadership and rolled something out, and the clinical faculty and the student body as a whole didn't like it. What more could we have done? We could have done more. We could have gone to those bodies and done it. But we did everything according to the book. So looking forward, you learn from one's mistakes. And I won't say that in the next 5 years, I'm not going to make any autocratic decisions, because sometimes you have to do exactly that. And sometimes you have to just make a decision that may or may not fly. In general, however, consensus building, we have a mechanism that goes on. I won't say bend over backwards, but we spend a lot of time getting people involved, getting them on board, and consulting those who are most affected. What happens sometimes is it flows down to department level, and the departments may or may not have done their due diligence as well. And of course that's a reflection on me as well, which it is, because I'm the captain of the ship. So going forward, I think we can do better, and hopefully there won't be more than the occasional incidents when that happens. Okay. Any other comments? Well, folks, thank you for coming, and I appreciate your support greatly, and we'll look forward to another red-hot 5 years ahead. Thank you.